All right, everybody, today we are talking about the crested gecko. It's one of the most popular reptiles that can be owned as a pet, and I'm going to give you those reasons why, some fun facts, and then we're also going to set up an enclosure for a crested gecko today, so you can kind of see exactly what goes into that and what is required for their care. So really interesting about the crested geckos, these were actually believed to be near extinction in the mid-90s until they were found in large populations in New Caledonia, which is islands off the coast of Australia. So the crested gecko has exploded in popularity as far as being owned as a pet, and there's quite a few reasons for that. The main reason, as you can see here, they're extremely docile. Now, this is a juvenile crested gecko, so they do get up to 10 inches with their tail, okay? And they are extremely docile, they are handleable, but they have a very low maintenance reptile, meaning they don't require that much when it comes to taking care of them. They are known as also as the eyelash gecko, and they get that name, if you can see. I'm going to try to get them close without the camera getting blurry. They have these beautiful eyelashes. Also, like most geckos, they do not have eyelids. So as you can see, this guy here, his eyes are wide open, and they can actually adjust the size of their pupils based on how much light or if they're sleeping. Now, crested geckos are nocturnal, so they are going to be much more active at night, and mostly during the day they're going to be hiding out in foliage. So whenever we're setting up the tank, I'll show you in a little bit, creating a lot of hiding spots for them. But what's really nice about them being a nocturnal gecko is, unlike most reptiles and lizards, they do not require any specialized lighting. So they don't need the expensive UVB and the basking bulbs. They just need very moderate lighting. They reside in temperatures between 65 degrees and 72 degrees at night, and they will tolerate temperatures up to 80 degrees during the day. So you can provide them a small heat source depending on the temperature of your house, but they also don't require it if your ambient room temperature is staying around 72 or 73 degrees. They are perfectly happy in that. Now, it's nice at night to get the enclosure lit up for you to use something like an infrared light so that you can see them, but it's not going to bother them moving around at night. All right, I switched out my specimen here. So this is an adult, or very close to a full-grown crested gecko. As you can see, like other reptiles, they do shed their skin as they grow. Also, unlike a lot of other gecko species, the crested geckos actually do not regenerate their tail, but they can drop them. So this adult crested gecko here, at some point in his life, we got him as an adult, did drop his tail, and unlike leopard geckos and gargoyle geckos, the crested gecko does not regrow its tail. Something else you can see from the other one I was holding, he's got completely different patterns and colors. So there are a ton of different color morphs and variations of crested geckos. Crested geckos are moderately priced reptile. Now, some of the higher end morphs can go for much more money, but your typical crested gecko is going to go anywhere between $40 to $130, with some of the higher end morphs going for several $100s. They are arboreal, and arboreal means that they live in trees. So whenever we talk about tank size for a crested gecko, it's important that you have a taller tank. Tall is always better as opposed to a wider tank. So a good recommended tank size, and again, this is just adding to a reason they are very popular, is they don't require a ton of space. So minimum tank size would be 12 by 12 by 18 tall. The Exoterra's front opening make great ventilation for the animal, but also allowed you to build up the tank vertically, which we're going to do so here in a minute or so. So taller is always better. Males are very territorial. So if you own a male, you can only have one male, but females can be housed in groups up to 3. And you can also keep a male with that. So if you go with a larger tank, something like an 18 by 18 by 24, you could actually keep up to 4 crested geckos together, and they will be happy and be so communally live. Males cannot be kept in large groups. They will fight, as they are very territorial. Something else interesting about them is they can also be housed with tree frogs, specific types of tree frogs, and make sure that they're appropriate size, because again, if you mix a little baby tree frog with an adult crested gecko, that'll become a snack, which leads me to their diet. They are fruit eaters as well as insect eaters. So they are omnivores, meaning they'll eat both. They make there's commercially sold diets out there for these guys with a ton of different fruit flavors, but you also need to supplement their diet with crickets and cockroaches, waxworms, mealworms. The only insect they really shouldn't have are superworms, and that's because superworms have a hard exoskeleton that the animal can't digest. So really diverse diet. And whenever it comes to choosing the size of the cricket or the bug that you're going to feed them, they should never be larger than what would fit in between their eyes. So whenever you're looking out there to think about what type of diet or what size cricket or what size dubia roach you should get whenever you're shopping for your little crested gecko, this one's so funny with his skin hanging off. You want to kind of take a look in between their eyes, and that's how much size of the cricket that they can eat. All right, so now, guys, that we've talked a little bit about the crested gecko, I'm going to show you how to set up their enclosure. So like I mentioned earlier, this is the perfect starter size and can house an adult crested gecko as well. Now, again, I wouldn't recommend housing them in a large group in this size enclosure, but they can happily live their entire lives in this type of enclosure. Again, we keep talking about how popular they are. As you can see, this tank takes up such a small footprint that they actually can be great desk pets. So you can put this on your desk, and they're not requiring a huge table or anything like that. So what I opened here was this Exoterra habitat kit. It's a rainforest terrarium. It provided a lot of great starting points to set up the crested gecko, but I am going to have to add and supplement some of the items. So inside the starter kit comes what is called plantation soil. Plantation soil is one of the best substrates for a majority of reptiles, and the reason for that is it is actually coconut husk. I'm going to use an open bag that's already loose. The brick comes, you have to dilute it in water, but the coconut husk is like coconut fiber. It's a little spongy actually, and why we like that so much is they do like 50 to 70% humidity, and to create that humidity, this coconut fiber actually absorbs water really, really well. So whenever you're in there and you're misting the animal, which we would recommend you buy a misting bottle, or using, you can get a misting bottle anywhere. But you keep that substrate a little bit moist. And how do you know if your reptile is getting 50 to 70% humidity? They actually make something called a hygrometer. So this kit I really like comes with a hygrometer, and the hygrometer will actually measure the level of humidity in your reptile's enclosure. So if they need more or less, you can spray them or add it that way. Another important, we're going to put that hygrometer in right now. Another important reason you need to mist the animal. Remember when we talked about them being arboreal? And most arboreal animals, right, do not have access to a drinking source, meaning that there are no ponds, lakes, streams, or rivers growing in the trees. So that crested gecko, we're going to put it on this side. Your crested gecko needs a water source. Now, we will give them a shallow water dish that they can go down to drink, but they most likely would prefer not to use that, and they will actually drink the water after you spray. So when you spray down their tank and the water is running down leaves or the foliage we're going to add to it, they will actually drink the moving water from that. Now, if you want to get really fancy, which we're not going to do today, they make waterfalls that you can put in that have little pumps that create constant flowing water in your tank. One of the really popular item for this type of enclosure would be called a leaf dripper. The leaf dripper actually has a little pump in the base, and it slowly pumps water up, and then the water runs down the leaves. So your crested gecko would be able to go in there and drink the running water off the leaves at all times without you having to spray it. But being that we need to keep the humidity up, you're going to be spraying your crested gecko at least 2 times a day anyway. So we are, like I said, we're going to put a small water dish in there. Always make sure their water dish is kept clean if they ever defecate or anything in that's going to need cleaned out and scrubbed. And then again, being that they are arboreal animals, we're going to add this one. This kit's really nice because it comes with this vine, right? So giving him plenty of climbing surfaces. There's a little plant, right? This one can spread out. It's funny, they will actually camouflage in with the plants. Here we have our babies. I asked the person working, how many baby crested geckos do we have? And they said, I think just one. And I went in and I started looking around the tank, and it was really, I was like, I don't think we have any. And then I proceeded to find 4 of them hiding inside the leaves. So they are masters at camouflaging. And being a smaller reptile, they would need to be masters at camouflaging, or they would be eaten by larger predators. So I really like a lot of foliage in these tanks because, again, it's going to make your gecko more comfortable and have better, greater confidence. If they're constantly living their life in fear, they don't know that they're captive animals, right? So they still have that natural instinct that they could be prey at any time. So the more you give them the hide-in, the better. And this actually came with 2 plants, this reptile kit, and it came with that one that goes on the bottom. So it really gives you a great start. I'm adding an additional plant here so that it is really, and it looks nice. Now, if you want to also get, like talking about getting fancy, you can do live plants in these, absolutely, which would make them look really awesome. When it comes to feeding, I know we mentioned that they eat insects, which the insects will crawl all over the tank, but they also eat fruit mix. So let me come across here. They make a ton of different flavors. Zoo Med makes like 6 or 7 different flavors. So this is plum flavor, bananas, peaches, and plums are in this one. You kind of have to experiment to see what your crested gecko likes and enjoys the most. But you can buy several different ones, and you do have to change out the food as it will spoil. Again, going back to talking about them being arboreal and living in trees, what does that mean for its food source? If you are an animal that lives in a tree, you do not want to go to the ground to eat. So again, they make all different kinds of these. They make ones that are built in that look like they are in rock ledges, but we need an arboreal feeding cup. And what does that mean? It means that the crested gecko's feeding cup will actually suction cup to the top of the tank, okay? And it's just like little plastic souffle cups that can be cleaned. You can also buy replacements. And when you mix their food, you're actually gonna hang it up at the top of the tank. Again, that will allow for your crested gecko to eat comfortably up at the top of the tank rather than putting his food down on the bottom, because again, they're very rarely going to go down onto the ground. Actually, if you see your crested gecko hanging out on the bottom of the tank, laying down there, it is most likely a sign of illness and that it's not feeling well, because again, they would not want to leave the trees, and that was not, that's not particular to them. So now I'm just trying to put this lid on. It's a little tough. I don't know why. I'll come back to that. There we go. Here we go. And then the lid's nice. It locks in there. Okay. And then whenever you're accessing, here you got this. Light fixture comes with the Exoterra reptile kit. Again, though, we do not want to put anything too hot on there because a maximum of 80 degrees. If you can get a very low wattage night bulb, that would be what I would recommend, because your animal is going to be active in the night. So therefore, you can illuminate them without bothering them in the night. And so as you can see, I mean, it's pretty simple. It's a pretty simple little setup, but it turned out really nicely. And then I'm gonna go and pick out a crested gecko to put in here. All right, so now all I have to do is mix their food right there, and you can see I already introduced a little baby, and he's gonna go exploring. Add a little bit of water to his dish, make sure my humidity level was up, and then this guy is ready to find his new home. So you can see, did that rather quickly, and it's honestly fairly affordable reptile as well. Altogether, this setup, retail, would cost about $200, what you're looking at, including lights, all of the extra decorations, the substrate that's in there. And then the crested gecko that I put in here is a little flame Dalmatian morph cross, and his price is about $40 or $50. So you can completely set this up perfectly for your reptile for less than $250. And if you do everything right and you follow care instructions, you take good care of your pet, this reptile can live up to 20 years. So longer than a lot of cats and dogs out there. So this is definitely a longer term commitment, but again, at least the care is very moderate. They're a low maintenance animal. So you can see that this thing turned out beautiful, and I'm excited because we're actually gonna put a special price on it for our customers up here, and let somebody grab it first. And thanks guys for watching. If you like watching the care videos, we're doing a ton of these. They're all over our page. We also load for fun short videos, so definitely like and subscribe the video. Leave any comments or questions if you guys have them. We'll do our best to answer them. Thanks for watching.